Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is 1 hour plus podcast for IELTS writing. So if you're getting ready for this exam, you probably know the feeling, that absolute panic when the clock starts and your mind just goes blank. It's often not even about grammar, right? It's about having ideas. And believe it or not, that's a skill you can learn. It's also a huge part of your score, a full 25% for what they call task response. That's really just how well you answer the question. Okay, so how do you beat that blank page? Well, first, you need a plan for brainstorming. You could try something like mind mapping, where you draw little branches out from the main topic, or try stakeholder analysis. That's where you just quickly think, okay, how does this affect regular people? How about businesses and the government? The goal here is to get solid points down in less than 4 minutes. All right, next up. Once you have those basic ideas, you've got to develop them. A great way to do that is with the why because so chain. It's super simple. You just ask, why is this true? Because of this reason. So what's the result? Following that little chain is what turns a simple thought into a fully developed argument that examiners are really looking for. And finally, let's talk about that all-important introduction. You want to keep it short and sweet, like 40 to 60 words tops. There are really only 2 things you have to do. 1, paraphrase the topic, so use different words, don't just copy the prompt. And 2, have a clear thesis statement that tells the examiner exactly what you're going to argue, right from the start. So you see, it all comes down to having a system. Simple, relevant ideas that are explained clearly are always going to score better than some complex philosophy. Like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
On, grammar rules, vocabulary lists, all that stuff.
Idioms, collocations, phrasal verbs, the list goes on.
But none of it, absolutely none of it, matters if you're just sitting there with a blank page, if you have nothing to actually say.
That's the cold, hard truth of it. You could have the most flawless grammar in the world, but if the content isn't there, the score just plummets.
It's that terrifying moment, and I want everyone listening to just picture this. You're in the exam hall. It has that, that specific smell of floor polish and anxiety.
And you can hear the clock. It's either a physical tick-tock or it's that huge digital countdown timer staring at you from the wall.
Exactly. And you turn over the task 2 paper, you read the prompt.
Right.
And then just nothing. Absolute static between your ears.
Tumbleweeds. Just total silence in your brain.
Complete emptiness. And that feeling, that panic starts to creep up. You look around and it feels like every single other person is writing like their life depends on it.
While you're just staring at this piece of paper, willing the words to appear.
So why does that happen? I mean, it's not a question of intelligence, is it?
Not at all. And that is, I think, the most important thing to establish right at the beginning of this deep dive. This blank mind phenomenon has absolutely nothing to do with how smart you are.
Right.
You could be the most opinionated person at a dinner party, you could talk for hours about current events, but in that specific high-pressure environment, the brain just freezes. It's not an IQ issue, it's a biological one.
So it's not that I don't know the answer, it's that I literally can't access the answer that's already in my head.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's writer's block, but it's amplified by panic. And before we jump into the toolbox of solutions, and we have a lot to get through today, we have to really understand the stakes. Why is this one skill, generating ideas, so incredibly important for your final score?
Well, the most obvious one is right there in the marking criteria, task response. It's 25%, a whole quarter of your mark.
A full quarter gone if your ideas are irrelevant or undeveloped. But it actually goes much, much deeper than that. I call it the domino effect.
The domino effect. Okay, break that down for me. How can having a weak idea actually hurt my grammar score? That seems disconnected.
Think about what's happening in your brain when you're panicking. You're scrambling, you're in survival mode.
Right, just trying to find something, anything to write.
And when you're in that state, are you going to take a risk with a complex sentence structure? Are you going to reach for that really sophisticated C1 level word you learned last week?
No way. I'm going to use the simplest words I know. It is good. It is bad.
You play it safe. You revert to your most basic English. You write short, simple, choppy sentences. You repeat vocabulary because your brain doesn't have the spare capacity to think about language. All its energy is focused on the question, what on earth do I say? Ah, okay, that makes total sense. So if we can solve the idea problem first, if we can make that part automatic, it frees up all this mental energy to focus on the language itself.
That's the ticket. Good, solid ideas are the foundation for good language. It's what allows you to show off your range. And of course, there's the big one, Time.
The clock.
You have 40 minutes for task 2. That's for planning, writing, and checking. If you spend 10, or worse, 15 minutes just staring into space, you have already failed.
You physically cannot write a 250-word essay and check it in the time that's left. It's impossible.
Impossible. You need a system, a repeatable process that gets you from a blank page to a full essay plan in minutes. Not 10 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 2.
2 minutes? That sounds incredibly fast.
It is fast, but it's also absolutely necessary. And that's our goal for today, to take you from a state of panic to a clear, logical procedure.
I love that phrase. From panic to procedure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with the why, the psychology. Why does my brain betray me like this? I read, I have opinions. Why can't I think of one reason why public transport is beneficial? It's the classic fight or flight response. Your body, your nervous system, interprets the exam pressure as a genuine threat. It thinks a tiger is about to jump out from behind the invigilator's desk.
And your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty.
Exactly. Your system is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. And when your body thinks a tiger is chasing you, it doesn't need to philosophize about urban planning, right?
No, it needs to run.
It needs to run. So the brain cleverly starts shutting down what it deems to be non-essential systems. And unfortunately for IELTS candidates, one of the first things it dials down is the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part that does all the heavy lifting. Logic, planning, reasoning, complex thought.
The very part you need to write a good essay. It gets inhibited. So those ideas that are right there, just under the surface, suddenly become impossible to grasp.
So step 1 is really just acknowledging that this is a physical thing happening to you. It's not a personal failure.
Yep. That's a huge part of it. Take a deep breath. Wiggle your toes. Remind yourself it's just an exam, not a tiger. But there's a second psychological trick, and I think this one's even more insidious because we do it to ourselves.
And that would be the perfectionism trap.
Oh, this one is the absolute killer. I see it in coaching sessions all the time. A student reads the prompt, an idea immediately pops into their head, and then this little critical voice says,
No, that's too simple.
"That's boring. Everyone's going to write that."
I need something brilliant, something unique that the examiner has never seen before.
They're waiting for this lightning bolt of genius to strike. They want to write an essay so profound that the examiner will stand up and applaud.
Which is never going to happen.
It is a total fantasy. Let's be really clear about who the examiner is. They are most likely an experienced teacher. They have a huge pile of essays to get through. They are tired. Their coffee is cold.
They're not looking for a Nobel Prize-winning thesis.
They are not. They are looking for a clear, relevant idea that is well supported and explained in good English. That's it. A simple idea, executed brilliantly, will always score higher than a genius idea that's explained poorly.
So, boring is beautiful.
Boring is beautiful, simple is safe. You need to lower the bar for originality and raise the bar for clarity.
Okay, that's a fantastic mantra to take into the exam. Lower the bar for originality, raise the bar for clarity. Let's open up the toolkit. We've got a lot of techniques here. Where should we start?
Let's start with the visual thinkers, the people who like to doodle and draw connections rather than making linear lists.
That's me. A straight list can sometimes feel even more intimidating. What's the go-to technique here?
The classic mind mapping method. Now, most people have heard of it, but they often do it wrong in an exam context. They make it too neat, or they waste time writing full sentences in the little bubbles.
Okay, so walk me through the fast and dirty version. I'm in the exam, I have my scrap paper. Let's pick a topic. Should all primary school children be required to learn a foreign language?
Perfect. So, eyes closed. Picture the blank paper. In the very center, you write the core concept and circle it. So, foreign language, primary.
Done. I've got my central bubble.
Now, here's the key. Do not think linearly. Don't try to think of argument number 1, argument number 2. Think in categories. Think in big buckets.
Buckets.
Yeah, buckets or branches. Who is affected by this? Who is involved? Draw 3 or 4 main branches coming out from your central circle.
Okay, well, the students, obviously.
Good. Draw a branch and label it students.
Uh-huh.
Who else? Who organizes this?
The education system, I guess. The schools.
Perfect. There's your second branch, education system. And what about the bigger picture? What happens when these kids grow up and enter the world?
That would be society or maybe the economy.
Let's use both. Society, economy.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have your main structure. This should take you, 15 seconds?
Yeah, no time at all.
Now, you just bombard these branches with keywords. Don't filter, don't judge. Go to the students branch. What words pop into your head?
Brain development, confidence, being able to travel.
Great. Write down brain plasticity, confidence, cultural awareness, just keywords. Now jump over to the economy branch.
Okay, economy.
That makes me think of jobs, global business.
Jot them down. Global market, trade, tourism. Do you see what's happening? You're not trying to write sentences. You're just making associations.
It feels a lot less stressful because I'm not committing to an argument yet. I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks.
That's the whole point. It allows your brain to jump around. If you get stuck on the students branch, you don't panic. You just leap over to society and keep the momentum going.
And then at the end, I'll have this messy web of ideas. How do I choose?
You look at your map and you can see visually which branches are the strongest, the ones with the most compelling keywords. You might look and say, okay, brain plasticity is a really strong point, and so is global job market.
Yeah.
You circle those two, and that's it.
That's my plan.
That is your 2-paragraph essay plan. It breaks that linear thinking pattern that causes so many people to freeze. I really like that. But I can also see how a mind map could get a bit chaotic if you're not a naturally visual person. What if the topic is more, I don't know, structured? Something about government policy or a social issue.
For that, you graduate to my personal favorite technique, the stakeholder analysis.
Stakeholder, that sounds very businesslike.
It is, but it's incredibly powerful for IELTS. A stakeholder is simply anyone who has a stake in the issue, anyone who is affected by it. So the core question you ask isn't, what are the arguments? It's, who cares about this?
Okay, let's test it out. Give me a typical social issue prompt.
How about, the rise of social networking sites has had a significant impact on society. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages.
Oof. Oh, that's a huge topic. Society could mean anything.
Don't panic, just ask the question. Who cares? Who uses these sites?
Teenagers, young adults,
Okay, stakeholder number 1, teenagers. Who worries about the teenagers using them?
their parents, and probably their teachers.
Stakeholder number 2, parents and educators. Who makes money from these sites?
The tech companies, of course, advertisers, businesses.
Stakeholder number 3, businesses. Now you just go down your list and ask, for this group, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Let's take teenagers.
Well, the advantages are connection with friends, creative expression. The disadvantages are things like cyberbullying, mental health issues, addiction.
Boom! There's your first body paragraph right there. You've got both sides. Now what about businesses?
Advantages for them are targeted marketing, building a brand. Disadvantages could be maybe their own employees getting distracted at work.
Perfect. There's your second body paragraph. By breaking down the huge, scary concept of society into specific, real groups of people, the ideas just fall out of the sky.
It's like it forces you to consider different perspectives without even really trying to. You're just listing people.
It systematizes empathy. You put yourself in the shoes of the parent, then the teenager, then the business owner, and suddenly you've gone from 0 ideas to about a dozen.
That is incredibly powerful. Okay, let's change gears. What about questions that involve time? A lot of prompts are about trends. You know, in recent years, more people are, or the way we work is changing because of technology.
Ah, yes, the change over time questions. For these, the time frame technique is your best friend. It's almost deceptively simple. It's just past, present, future.
That sounds too simple. How did that generate a whole essay?
Let's use an example. A common one is, people in many countries are living longer than ever before. What problems does this cause, and what are the solutions? If you just stare at that, you might get one idea, like, healthcare costs more.
Yeah, that's about as far as I'd get before I got stuck.
Okay, so now let's apply the timeline. First, the past. What was the situation like, say, 50 or 100 years ago?
Well, life expectancy was much lower. Elderly people were usually cared for by their own families at home. It was more of a family responsibility.
Good. Now, the present. What's the situation right now because of this change?
We have what they call an aging population. Our healthcare systems are under massive strain. The pension systems are struggling to cope.
Perfect. Now, the future. If this trend continues, what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years? What are the potential solutions or consequences?
We might need things like robotic caregivers. Or governments might have to, I don't know, raise the retirement age to 75 or 80.
Now stop and look at what you just did. You've created a natural story. Quote, in the past, care for the elderly was a family matter. However, in the present day, this has shifted to a societal problem straining public services. Therefore, looking to the future, we must explore radical solutions like automation or policy reform.
Wow, it basically writes the essay structure for you. It naturally creates that problem-solution flow.
That's the magic of it. The present usually contains the problem, and the future naturally leads you to think about solutions. It's a very sophisticated structure that comes from a very simple thought process.
Okay, I want to pause on something critical here. We've talked about getting the initial nugget of an idea. For instance, using the mind map, I came up with learning a language is good for the brain.
A perfectly valid point, a good starting point.
But that's where I get stuck. That's all I have. I write that one sentence, and then I just repeat it in different ways. It's a classic Band 5 paragraph. It is beneficial for cognitive development. This is good for the brain. How do I expand that one little nugget into a fully developed, high-scoring paragraph?
This is arguably the most important skill that separates a 6.0 from an 8.0. It's all about development and elaboration. And the tool for this is what I call the why, because, so chain.
The why, because, so chain.
It's a logical chain reaction. You make a statement and you never, ever let it stand alone. You immediately attack it with a question, why? Or, so what? Let's try it. Give me another bland, simple idea, let's say, about the topic of urban green spaces, like parks.
Okay. City parks are important.
Terrible. I mean, it's true, but it's going nowhere. Now, let's put it through the chain. First question, why are they important?
Because they provide a place for people to relax.
Better. Now ask. Because of that, what happens? What's the specific mechanism?
Well, people can escape the noise and the stress of the city.
Good. Keep going. So what? What's the result of that escape?
So, it improves their mental health, their well-being.
We're getting somewhere. Go one step further. And then what? What's the broader benefit to the city?
And then there's a top here. Well, a happier, less stressed population is probably a more productive and a healthier population, which reduces the burden on public health services.
Now look at the full chain you just built. You went from city parks are important to urban green spaces are crucial because they offer residents an escape from the stress of city life. This opportunity for relaxation has a direct positive impact on mental well-being, which in turn leads to a healthier, more productive populace, and can even reduce the strain on public healthcare systems.
That sounds like it came straight out of a textbook.
And all we did was repeatedly ask why and so what? It forces you to go deeper to explain the cause and effect, which is the very definition of a well-developed argument.
That is such a powerful tool. It stops you from just making a list of undeveloped points. Parks are good, they have trees, people like them.
Which is what we call a laundry list essay. Examiners can spot them a mile away and they do not score well.
Okay, so let's move on to those really tricky question types. The discuss both views and give your own opinion prompts.
Ah, yes, the balanced argument questions.
My problem here is this. What if I genuinely believe one side of the argument is completely wrong, or frankly, just stupid?
Ah, yes. Some people believe that governments should not fund the arts, while others believe this is a crucial investment. And maybe you're an artist and you think the first view is just barbaric.
Exactly. Or something like single-sex schools versus mixed schools. I went to a mixed school. I loved it. And I think single-sex schools are an archaic idea. My mind goes completely blank when I try to think of arguments for them.
This is where you have to become an actor. You have to completely detach your personal opinion from the task. The technique is the perspective shifting method. You have to mentally try on different hats.
So I have to play a character.
Precisely. You don't have the ideas, but a character would. So let's take single-sex schools. You personally think they're a bad idea, but now put on the old-fashioned strict head teacher hat. What does that character believe?
That character would probably say, boys and girls are a distraction to each other. They should be focused on their studies, not on socializing.
Excellent. Reduces distractions. There's your first argument. Now, put on a different hat. Try the educational psychologist hat, someone who has read studies about how different genders learn.
Okay, that person might argue that teaching methods can be tailored specifically to boys' or girls' learning styles. For instance, boys may benefit from more kinesthetic learning.
Tailored curriculum. There is your second, very strong argument. You don't have to believe it for a second. The character you're playing believes it.
And then for my side, the one I actually agree with, I can put on the modern sociologist hat.
What would they say?
They'd say, the real world is not segregated by gender. Schools should prepare children for the reality of working and collaborating in a mixed gender environment.
Real world preparation. Look at that. You've just generated 3 distinct high-quality arguments simply by role-playing.
It's quite liberating, actually. You realize you don't have to personally endorse an idea to be able to explain it.
That's it. The examiner isn't marking your personal philosophy. They're marking your ability to articulate different viewpoints in English.
That's a huge weight off my shoulders. Okay, what about when the topic feels either really, really small or impossibly huge? Sometimes I get an idea, but it just feels personal or anecdotal. Like, I enjoy watching foreign films. That's not an essay point.
No, it's not, but it can be the starting point. For these kinds of topics, things like culture, the environment, globalization, you need the personal to global scaling technique. Think of it like a camera zoom. You start with a close-up and then you slowly zoom out.
A microscope to a telescope. I like that visual.
Let's use that exact example. The advantages and disadvantages of the dominance of foreign films. Level 1, the microscope. Personal. Why do you personally watch a Hollywood blockbuster?
To be honest, because the special effects are amazing and they have famous actors I recognize, it's pure entertainment.
A valid personal reason. Now, zoom out one step. Level 2, community local. What happens to your local town or city if everyone only watches Hollywood films?
The small independent cinema might go out of business. The local film industry doesn't get funding. Local actors and directors can't find work. Our own stories don't get told on screen.
Fantastic. So now you have an economic and cultural argument on a local level. Now zoom out again. Level 3, national. What's the impact on the country as a whole?
It becomes about national identity, doesn't it? If all our media is from another country, we might start to lose parts of our own culture, our own language, our own values.
Cultural erosion or cultural imperialism. Excellent. Now zoom out one last time. Level 4, global. What does this mean for the world?
Well, you risk a kind of global monoculture. Every city starts to look and feel the same. It's the homogenization of culture.
Perfect. See the journey. You started with, I like cool special effects, and you ended your brainstorming with global cultural homogenization. That gives you an incredible range of ideas, from the concrete to the highly abstract.
And it guarantees you don't just stay stuck in your own personal bubble, but you're also not floating around in vague concepts without any grounding.
That's the balance. It elevates the personal and grounds the abstract.
Okay, let's get a bit more analytical. Some questions are very structured comparisons. The classic: compare the advantages and disadvantages of living in a large city with living in the countryside. My fear here is that I'll just start rambling and my essay will be a mess.
It can easily become a mess. Cities are busy, but the country is quiet, but cities have jobs, but the country has fresh air. You need a more systematic approach. You need the comparison matrix.
A matrix, so like a table or a grid.
Exactly. Either on your scrap paper or just in your mind, picture a simple 2x2 grid. The two columns are city and countryside, and the rows are your points of comparison.
What category should I use for the rows?
Stick to the universal ones. Things like employment, cost of living, services like healthcare and education, and say lifestyle or social life.
Okay, so I've got my grid.
Now you just fill in the boxes. It's like filling out a form. Let's do it. Employment.
City, more opportunities, higher salaries, career progression.
Yeah.
Countryside, fewer options, maybe more seasonal or agricultural work.
Good. Next row, cost of living.
City, very high, especially housing. Countryside, generally much cheaper.
Next row, services.
City, you've got everything on your doorstep: hospitals, universities, public transport. Countryside, you might have to travel a long way for a specialist doctor or a good school.
Do you see how mechanical and efficient that is?
It is. It takes the creativity out of it in a good way. It's just a data entry task.
And in an exam, that kind of boring efficiency is exactly what you want. It guarantees that you will have a balanced argument because you're forced to consider each aspect for both sides. You won't write 200 words about pollution and completely forget to mention jobs.
And that balance is critical for those discuss both views type questions.
Absolutely essential.
Okay, let's look at hypothetical or future-focused questions again. We talked about the past, present, future framework, but what about more speculative prompts? What would be the consequences if all university education was made free?
For that, you use the what-if scenario technique. This is where you get to play futurist a little bit. You take the prompt and you follow the logical chain of consequences. Let's use your example. What if university was free for everyone? Don't just give one answer. Create a few different scenarios. Scenario A, the student perspective.
Okay, well, more people from poorer backgrounds could get a degree. It would increase social mobility.
Good. Scenario B, the university perspective.
The universities would be flooded with applications. Classes would be huge. Maybe the quality of teaching would go down because they're underfunded and overcrowded.
An excellent counterpoint. Scenario C, the government economic perspective.
The government would have to pay for it, so taxes would have to go up significantly. But in the long run, a more educated workforce might lead to a stronger economy.
You see, you're not just giving one simple answer. You're exploring the complex knock-on effects of the policy. You're creating mini narratives of cause and consequence, which shows a much higher level of critical thinking.
It's a domino effect again. But this time I'm the one setting up the dominoes.
A perfect analogy.
All right, let's wade into the really controversial topics, the ones that are designed to be divisive. Capital punishment should be abolished. Military service should be compulsory.
The hot button issues. For these, you need the controversy identification method.
So I need to figure out why it's controversial in the first place.
Exactly. These topics are chosen for the exam because there's a fundamental conflict of values at their core. Your job isn't to solve the debate for all humanity. Your job is to identify that core conflict. Find the friction points.
Okay, let's take compulsory military service.
Yeah.
Why do people argue about this? It's not usually about whether being disciplined is good or bad.
Right. The conflict is deeper. What's the first friction point?
It's about individual freedom versus the needs of the state, isn't it?
There you go. The core value of individual liberty is clashing with the value of national security or social duty. That clash is what your essay should be about.
Okay, what's another friction point for that topic?
What about fairness or equality?
How so?
Well, is it truly fair for everyone? Could wealthy individuals find ways to avoid service while it falls disproportionately on the poor? Does it interrupt a crucial period for education or career development?
So it becomes a debate about equality of sacrifice. That's a much more sophisticated argument than just saying it's good for discipline.
By identifying these deep value conflicts, liberty versus security, equality versus efficiency, tradition versus progress, you elevate your essay from a simple list of pros and cons into a truly thoughtful discussion.
That's where the top band scores are hiding.
That is absolutely where they are.
Let's talk about a different kind of problem. When the prompt is really abstract and honestly a bit dry. Something like the role of government in funding the arts. My brain just goes fuzzy.
Yes, abstract prompts are a major cause of writer's block. So the trick is not to start with the abstract. You start with something concrete and work backwards. This is example first, reverse engineering.
Okay, so give me a concrete real-world example related to government funding for the arts.
Think of a national museum or a public broadcaster like the BBC or PBS.
Okay, I can picture the British Museum.
Why does the government give it money? Why is it free to enter?
So that anyone, rich or poor, can see these amazing things. To make culture accessible to everyone.
There you go. You've just reverse engineered your first abstract principle. Public funding ensures cultural accessibility and treats art as a public good, not just a luxury product. Now think another concrete example. Picture a struggling young musician playing on the street.
Okay, they're talented, but they're not making much money.
Why not? In a pure free market, why isn't their talent enough?
Because
Yeah.
the market doesn't always reward that kind of art. It's easier to sell a pop song than a complex piece of classical music.
And there's your second abstract principle. Governments must intervene to correct for market failure, as the free market alone may not adequately support culturally valuable but commercially unviable art forms.
I see. I started with a museum and a busker, things I can actually visualize, and I extracted these really sophisticated economic and social arguments from them.
It's so much easier to work from a story to a theory than the other way around. Our brains are wired for concrete examples.
Start with the story. I love that. Now, for the problem-solution essays, is there a rule for pairing things up?
An ironclad rule. The problem-solution pairing must be direct and logical. This is a trap so many students fall into.
Give me an example of a bad pairing.
A student might write, a major problem is the severe air pollution caused by heavy industry. And then in the next paragraph, they write, a solution to this is to teach children about recycling in schools.
Right. I mean, teaching kids is good, but it's not going to stop the smoke coming out of the factory tomorrow.
It's a total mismatch. The examiner looks at that and thinks you're not thinking logically. The solution has to directly address the problem you identified, if the problem is industrial emissions.
The solution has to be something like stricter government regulations on factories or investment in green technology.
If the problem is traffic congestion,
the solution has to be improving public transport or introducing congestion charges.
Yeah.
You have to keep the pairs tightly linked.
Exactly. Keep them married. A mismatch is a huge red flag for the examiner.
Okay, I have to ask, is there a cheat code? A sort of in case of emergency break class, list of ideas that can be applied to almost any topic.
I wouldn't call it a cheat code, but it's a very powerful safety net. These are the universal themes. The idea is that almost any complex IELTS topic can be broken down into a few fundamental human tensions or debates.
So what are they?
There are a few key pairs. For example, individual versus collective, short-term versus long-term, tradition versus progress, and maybe equality versus efficiency.
Let's put it to the test. Give me a random topic. Space exploration.
Easy. Short-term versus long-term. It costs a huge amount of money right now, which is a short-term pain, for the potential long-term gain of new discoveries or even saving humanity. And individual versus collective. Should we spend that money on immediate needs like hospitals, which helps individuals today, or on the collective long-term goal of advancing human knowledge?
Wow, okay. Another one. The rise of fast food.
Tradition versus progress, the tradition of slow, family-cooked meals versus the progress of convenient, fast options. And equality versus efficiency. It's highly efficient, but does it lead to health inequalities?
It actually works for almost anything. It gives you an angle of analysis instantly.
It's your safety net. If your mind is completely blank, just run through that list. Is this about the individual versus society? Is it about the past versus the future? 9 times out of 10, one of those frameworks will fit and give you a way in.
Okay, let's talk about some more creative lateral thinking techniques. We touched on role-playing with the hats. What about playing the devil's advocate?
This is an essential tool, especially for strengthening your own argument in an agree-disagree essay. Let's say the topic is zoos should be banned, and you wholeheartedly agree.
Right. My essay's easy. I'll write about animal cruelty, animals belonging in the wild, the stress of captivity.
But you might run out of steam, or your argument might sound a bit one-sided. So for 2 minutes, you force yourself to argue the exact opposite. You become the devil's advocate. Why should we keep zoos?
Well, I guess for conservation of endangered species.
No.
And for education. They teach children about animals they'd never see otherwise.
Perfect. Conservation and education. Now, you don't have to agree with those points, but you can include them in your essay to show balance.
So I could write something like, while proponents of zoos often cite their role in conservation and education, these benefits are far outweighed by the ethical concerns of keeping animals in captivity.
Exactly. You've anticipated the counter-argument and dismissed it. That is a very high-level rhetorical skill. It shows the examiner that you've thought about the issue from all sides.
I see these acronyms in our outline here. SPCE. Love a good acronym. It helps me remember things under pressure.
Acronyms are fantastic for this. They are a categorical thinking framework. They act like a checklist to make sure you've considered a topic from multiple angles. So SCPCE stands for, SPCE stands for S social. So SCPCE stands for E economic. So SCPC stands for P political. So SCPCE stands for C cultural. So SCPCE stands for E environmental.
Let's try with a big topic like globalization. Just run through the letters. S.
Social. Increased migration, mixing of populations, potential social friction. E.
Economic. Free trade, multinational corporations, loss of local jobs. P.
Political. International cooperation, but also a loss of national sovereignty. C. Cultural. The spread of ideas and food, but also the risk of cultural homogenization we talked about. E. Environmental. The carbon footprint of global supply chains.
In 30 seconds, we've just generated 5 completely distinct angles for an essay, just from one word.
It's incredibly effective. And there are others you can use depending on the topic. For health, you might use PMESF. Physical, mental, emotional, social, financial. For education, ASPP, academic, social, practical, personal.
You don't need to know all of them. Just have 1 or 2 in your back pocket.
That's the idea. It prevents you from getting tunnel vision and only writing about, say, the economic aspects of a topic while ignoring the social and environmental ones.
What about using general knowledge? I read the news, I listen to other deep dives. Can I bring that in?
You absolutely should. That's the news and current affairs connection. It makes your essay feel grounded and relevant. You don't need to quote specific dates or statistics.
So no need to say, according to a 2022 report.
No, just general knowledge. If the topic is public health, you can absolutely refer to the challenges faced during the recent pandemic. If it's about technology, you can mention the rise of remote working. If it's transport, you can refer to the development of high-speed rail networks in countries like Japan or China.
It adds a layer of credibility, I suppose. It shows the examiner you're not just writing in a vacuum.
It adds weight and authority to your points. An essay that connects to the real world is always more compelling.
And what about my own real world? Personal experience. I was always taught never to use I or tell personal stories in task 2.
And that's generally true. You shouldn't write an anecdote. You shouldn't say, last year my friend started a small business and it was very difficult.
But I can use that experience.
You can mine it for a general principle. This is personal experience mining. Take that memory of your friend's business. Why was it difficult?
He struggled to compete with big corporations. He couldn't get a loan from the bank.
Now, generalize that. Turn it into an academic sentence. Small and medium-sized enterprises often face significant challenges, including intense competition from larger corporations and difficulties in securing initial capital.
Ah, I see. The idea came from my friend, but the sentence is about enterprises in general.
Exactly. Or if you remember a school project where one person did all the work.
You generalize it too. Collaborative learning environments can sometimes lead to an inequitable distribution of workload, potentially causing friction within the group.
You're taking the raw material of your life and you're refining it into an academic argument. It's a fantastic source of ideas that people often overlook.
Okay, wow. We have just generated an absolute mountain of ideas using all these different tools. Now I have the opposite problem. My scrap paper is full. I have too many ideas.
This is a much better problem to have, but you're right, it is still a problem that needs to be solved.
Because if I try to cram 15 ideas into a 250-word essay, it's going to be a complete mess, isn't it?
It will be a disaster. It will be that laundry list essay we talked about, a series of points with no development, no depth. You'll get a low score for task response.
So we have to be ruthless. We have to filter.
This is section 8, synthesis and prioritization. You need to apply the 3-question filter to every idea you've scribbled down. Point to an idea on your page. Ask yourself,
can I explain this clearly and in detail? If it's a super complex idea you only half understand, get rid of it.
Okay, be honest with myself about my ability to explain it.
2, can I support this with a reason or an example? If you can't think of an example, the idea is probably too weak.
An idea without an example is just an opinion.
And 3, and this is the most important one, is this directly and specifically relevant to the question asked? If it's a tangent, even a brilliant one, it gets 0 marks.
That third one is the silent killer. I can see the word technology and want to talk about my new phone, but the question is actually about the impact of automation on employment.
And that's an instant fail on task response. You must answer the question, not the question you wish they had asked.
So what's the magic number? After filtering, how many core ideas should I be aiming for in a standard essay?
Far fewer than you think. For a discuss both views essay, 2 strong, well-developed ideas for each view. That's it. For an agree-disagree essay, 2 or 3 strong ideas supporting your position, and maybe 1 paragraph acknowledging the counter-argument. For a problem-solution essay, 2 problems, 2 matching solutions.
So the mantra is depth over breadth.
Always. I would rather read an essay that explores 2 ideas brilliantly than one that mentions 10 ideas superficially.
Depth over breadth. That needs to be written on the wall. Okay, let's talk about practice. This all sounds fantastic in a calm conversation, but how do I get fast enough to do this under intense exam pressure?
You train for it like a sprinter. You don't run a full marathon every day. You do short, intense drills. I call it the daily practice regime.
So what does that look like?
Every day, you find a new IELTS Task 2 prompt online. You set a timer for just 3 minutes. And in those 3 minutes, you do not write the essay. You only create the plan.
So just the mind map or the stakeholder list?
Just the plan. On Monday, use a mind map. On Tuesday, try a stakeholder analysis. On Wednesday, use CPE. By doing these short drills over and over, you build the mental muscle memory. Your brain will start to recognize question types and automatically suggest a framework.
So you're not reinventing the wheel every time?
You're not. And I also recommend keeping an idea journal. When you read an article or listen to a podcast and you hear a really good argument about a common IELTS topic like the environment or education, jot it down.
So you're building a mental bank of arguments.
Exactly. You're preloading your brain so you never have to start from absolute 0.
Speaking of which, you mentioned topic banks earlier as well, having pre-prepared frameworks for common themes.
Yes, the IELTS world is finite. The same themes come up again and again. You should have a few go-to debates ready in your mind for each one.
It's often academic skills versus holistic development.
It's often privacy versus convenience.
It's security versus flexibility.
Or health, prevention versus treatment.
By having these core tensions preloaded, when you see a question about health, your brain immediately pulls out that file and you're already halfway to having an argument.
Okay, we are getting close to the end, but we have to cover the emergency scenario. I want to role play this. I'm in the exam. I've panicked. The clock shows I have exactly 60 seconds left to create my plan before I absolutely must start writing. Talk me through it second by second.
Okay, deep breath. Here's the 60-second emergency generator. Seconds 0 to 5. Just identify the question type. Is it agree, disagree? Problem, solution. Just know what kind of essay you have to write. Seconds 5 to 15. Grab your pen and physically underline the keywords in the prompt. What is the absolute core topic? Seconds 15 to 35. Pick one go-to technique and just do it. Don't waste time choosing. My recommendation for speed is stakeholder analysis. Just lists 3 groups: individuals, businesses, government. Seconds 35 to 50. For each stakeholder, generate 1 keyword or example. Student stress, government costs. Seconds 50 to 60. Look at your keywords and circle the 2 or 3 strongest ones. That is your plan. Seconds 50 to 60. Stop, breathe, and start writing.
That's incredibly structured. It feels like even in a state of panic, I could probably follow that drill.
The purpose of a drill is to override panic. Action cures fear.
And just very quickly, before we finish, task 1, the charts and graphs. Does this apply there? I'm not really generating ideas, am I?
You're not inventing arguments, no, but you are generating the main idea or the story of the data. You have to select the key features. For a line graph, you use categorical thinking.
Right.
What's the overall trend? What are the highest and lowest points? Are there any significant exceptions?
And for a process diagram, like how chocolate is made.
You use chronological thinking. What's the input? What are the key stages? What is the final output? You are generating a summary of a sequence.
So the idea is the overall summary, the main trend.
Yes. If you don't identify that main story, you're just listing numbers, and that's a very low-scoring task 1 response.
This has been an absolutely phenomenal deep dive. My brain is full, but it's a good feeling. It feels like I have this huge, overflowing toolbox now.
And that's the point. You don't need to use every tool for every job. You just need to know which one to grab for the specific task in front of you.
So if you had one final piece of advice for that listener who is still absolutely terrified of the blank page, what would it be?
I would say that confidence does not come from inspiration. It comes from systems. If you walk into that exam hall hoping that a brilliant idea will magically appear, you are leaving your future up to chance.
You're gambling.
You're gambling. But if you walk in with a set of procedures, a mind map, a stakeholder analysis, a logical chain, you are in control. Remember, you do not need to be a world expert on urban planning or artificial intelligence. You just need to be an expert at discussing those topics in English.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. The ideas are already in your head from your life experience and everything you've ever read or watched. These techniques are just the keys that unlock the door.
The ideas are already there.
I love that. It really does take the pressure off. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to be systematic. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down. It has been incredibly valuable.
It was my absolute pleasure. Best of luck to everyone out there with their writing. And all of you listening, I hope you take these tools and start practicing. Try that 3-minute drill. See which technique clicks with your brain. And of course, if you found this deep dive helpful and you want to catch the next one, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Bye for now.
Hello. Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is IELTS Writing: How to Write Strong Introductions.
It's fantastic to be here. This is a topic that I think, it keeps a lot of people up at night. We spend so much time talking about the body paragraphs, the conclusion, but the introduction, well, that's the moment of truth, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, it's that terrifying moment. You open the exam booklet, you're staring at the blank page, and you can just hear the clock ticking away, tick, tick, tick. And there's this immense pressure to produce something brilliant, right out of the gate. It feels like this huge hurdle you have to jump before you can even start the actual race.
That is a very, very vivid way to put it. And you're right, the anxiety is real. But I like to reframe that anxiety for students. I want you to think of the essay introduction not as a hurdle, but as a handshake.
A handshake. Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through that.
Well, think about it. You walk into a job interview. You meet the interviewer for the first time. What's the first thing that happens?
You shake their hand.
You shake their hand. And that split second, that one moment of physical contact, it tells a story. So if you give a limp, sweaty, sort of weak handshake, what are you communicating?
You're saying, I'm nervous, or maybe I'm not totally sure I belong here. You're basically apologizing for your existence before you've even said a word.
Precisely. You are starting from a deficit. You're forcing yourself to fight this uphill battle for the rest of the interview just to prove you're actually competent.
Right.
But imagine you walk in and give a firm, dry, confident handshake. You look them right in the eye. What does it say?
That says, I've got this. It signals competence, confidence. immediately.
That is exactly what the introduction does for your IELTS examiner. It is the first impression. It's the very first time they're seeing your English in action.
Ah, okay.
So if it's messy or confused or it's full of basic errors, the examiner, even subconsciously, starts to tag you as a lower band student.
Wow.
But a strong introduction, that's your firm handshake. It sends a clear signal. I understand this task, I have the vocabulary to discuss it, and I am in total control of this language.
I love that analogy. So our goal here is to walk into that essay and give the examiner a firm, confident, linguistic handshake. We don't want to be the sweaty palm guy.
We definitely do not.
So what's our mission for this deep dive then? We've got a lot of ground to cover.
Our mission is to dismantle the mystery. I feel like so many students think the introduction has to be this, magical, poetic opening. It really doesn't.
Right.
We want to help you, the listener, craft introductions that are concise, clear, and structurally sound. The goal is to eliminate the fluff.
Fluff is the enemy. I feel like a lot of students fall into that trap of thinking, if I just write more and more words, even if they don't mean much, I'll get a higher score.
And that is the biggest trap of all. Your goal is to maximize the band score, not the word count. We're not trying to write a Victorian novel here. We're performing a very specific academic task. And frankly, a lot of students waste precious minutes writing these flowery philosophical openings that don't actually score any points.
Okay, so let's unpack the actual purpose then, because it's not just about starting the essay. It has very specific jobs to do, doesn't it?
It has 5 specific jobs, yes. And if your introduction isn't doing all 5 of these, it's not working hard enough for you.
5. Okay, let's hear them.
First, and this is absolutely critical for the task response criteria, task understanding. You have to prove, beyond a doubt, that you actually read and understood the prompt.
Right, so if the prompt is about, say, the benefits of space travel, and you start your essay by writing about transportation in general, you've already lost them.
You're off the rails before the train has even left the station.
Yeah.
If your intro is slightly off topic, the examiner immediately assumes the whole essay is going to be off topic.
That's a bad start.
A very bad start. Second is context. You need to acknowledge that the topic exists in the real world, but without writing a history book on it.
So acknowledging the conversation without replaying the last 100 years of it.
That's the ticket. Third is your position. If the prompt asks for your opinion, you absolutely must state it. No exceptions.
No hiding the ball until the end.
No mystery novels.
Yeah.
We need to know who the killer is in chapter 1.
Okay.
Fourth is the roadmap. You are signaling to the reader, this is where the bus is going, so they're not lost.
I like that.
And finally, the 5th function is a language showcase. This is your first chance to flex your vocabulary and your grammar muscles. You do it right from sentence 1.
Wow, that feels like a lot to pack into a single paragraph. I'm imagining like half a page of text just to get all that in.
And see, that's where people go wrong. That would be a disaster for your time management. The beauty of a great introduction is that you can do all of that in just 2 or 3 sentences.
Wait, really? Just 2 or 3?
That is the ideal length. We are talking, maybe 40 to 60 words total. Lean and mean.
That is a huge relief. I think I was imagining having to write a mini essay before I could even get to the actual essay. Okay, let's do this. Let's dive into the anatomy of this perfect, lean introduction. You said 2 or 3 sentences. What are they?
We can break it down into 3 potential components. First, you have the opening statement. This is where you provide the background and the context.
Okay.
Second, you have the thesis statement. This is the heart of the intro. It's your position, your main argument.
The heart. Got it.
And third, which I'd say is optional but highly recommended for anyone aiming for a band 7 or higher, is the outline statement. This is your map.
Okay, this structure seems like the secret sauce. Let's go through these one by one. I want to start with that opening statement. You call this the funnel technique.
I do, yes. Imagine a funnel. It's wide at the top and it gets narrow at the bottom. Your opening statement works just like that.
Okay.
You want to start with a general idea that sort of covers the whole topic, but then you very quickly zoom in to the specific issue that's in the prompt.
Can you give us an example? Let's use a common topic. Something about unpaid community service for high schoolers.
Perfect example. Let's say the prompt is, some people believe that unpaid community service should be a compulsory part of high school programs. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, a weak opening, the anti-funnel, if you will, would just be to copy that sentence word for word.
Some people believe that unpaid community service.
Yeah, that's just a copy-paste job. It shows 0 skill.
Correct. You are telling the examiner, I can read your question, but I might not be able to write my own sentences.
Right.
A strong opening using that funnel technique might sound something like this. The role of volunteer work in adolescent education has become an increasingly debated topic in recent years.
Oh, I see exactly what you did there. That's very clever. You didn't say unpaid community service. You used volunteer work. And you didn't say high school programs. You said adolescent education. Just paraphrased it. And notice the scope. It starts broad, the role of volunteer work. But it immediately connects it to education, which zooms us right into this specific lane of the prompt.
Yeah.
It sets the stage perfectly without giving away the ending yet.
It feels sophisticated. It sounds like the first line of an article in a serious magazine or something. Okay, so that's the opening. Now we get to the thesis statement. You called this the heart.
Because it is. This is the critical moment. This is where you answer the specific question that was asked. And this is where so many students, so many, lose points because of what we call fence sitting.
Fence sitting, meaning they're just afraid to pick a side. They're acting like a politician.
Exactly like a politician. The prompt asks, do you agree or disagree? And the student writes something vague like, this is a complex issue with many interesting viewpoints on both sides.
And the examiner's sitting there just screaming internally, but what do you think?
That's it. Ambiguity is a point killer. You need to say, I agree, or I disagree, or I partially agree. You must be definitive.
So using that same community service example, let's say I think forcing kids to work for free is a bad idea. What would a good thesis look like?
A strong, clear thesis might be, while I recognize there could be potential benefits to such programs, I firmly believe that making them obligatory could undermine their very purpose.
It's clear. You're saying, I see the potential benefits, so you're being balanced, but you are firmly against making it mandatory. Boom. Your position is crystal clear.
And notice, it's not rude or aggressive. It's academic. I believe making such programs obligatory could undermine their purpose. It uses concession that, well, I recognize part, which adds a layer of nuance.
I like that a lot. Now, that third part, the outline statement, you said this one is optional.
It is debated in the teaching community. Some instructors say it's unnecessary, that it's a bit too formulaic.
Okay.
But my view, and the view of many high-level examiners, is that for high achievers, it strengthens the essay significantly. It acts as that map. It tells the reader exactly what to expect.
But there's a catch, isn't there? There's a big style warning here.
A massive one.
Let me guess. It's the robot voice. It's, in this essay I will discuss.
Yes, you nailed it. You must avoid that robotic, mechanical phrasing. In this essay, I will discuss the pros and cons. It's so clunky, it sounds like a fifth-grade book report.
So how do we do it better? How do we give the reader the map without sounding like a GTS?
You integrate the outline into your thesis statement, or you make it flow naturally right after it. So, for example, we could just extend that thesis we just wrote.
Okay.
We could say, suggesting that voluntary programs would be more effective due to both practical implementation challenges and serious motivation concerns.
I see. So you've just given me the two body paragraphs. You've listed implementation challenges and motivation concerns. So now I, as the reader, know that your first main paragraph is going to be about implementation and the second is going to be about motivation.
Spot on. You've given me the roadmap without forcing me to read a clunky, ugly signpost. It flows.
That is so slick. So the structure is context, then thesis, then roadmap, just 2 or 3 sentences, done.
Done. Simple, effective, and very high scoring.
Okay, now I want to circle back to something we touched on in that example because it seems absolutely critical. You changed community service to volunteer work. This feels like a huge part of the score.
It is massive. And that brings us perfectly to the next section of our discussion today, which is essentially the art of paraphrasing.
Right. So why is it so important? I mean, why can't I just use the words that are in the prompt? They're right there. They're the correct words.
Because the examiner knows they wrote the prompt.
Yeah.
If you just copy their words, you're proving you can read their question, but you are not proving you can write your own sentences.
I see.
Copied words, and this is so important for everyone to understand, are literally disregarded from the word count and, more importantly, from your lexical resource score.
Ouch. So if I copy the prompt, I'm actually writing a shorter essay with a lower vocabulary score. I'm literally shooting myself in the foot.
You are. You're basically sending a signal to the examiner that says, I don't know any other words for this concept.
Okay, so how do we do it? What are the strategies? I feel like sometimes students just freeze up trying to find the one perfect synonym.
And you don't need the perfect one. We have 4 main strategies you can use. The first and the most straightforward one is just synonym replacement.
Just swapping words for other words with a similar meaning.
That's it. So international travel might become overseas tourism or global mobility, children could become minors, youngsters, or youth.
Can I say kids?
I would strongly advise against it. Kids is too informal. It's slang. Keep it academic. Think offspring, juveniles, adolescents.
Got it. And what about a common word like increase?
Increase could become a surge, an escalation, or you could say things proliferate.
Escalate. I like that one. It sounds dramatic and academic.
It's good academic vocabulary. Now, strategy number 2 is changing word forms. This is where you might turn a noun into a verb or an adjective into a noun. This is a lifesaver if you can't think of a direct synonym.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. If the prompt talks about the popularity of online shopping, you could change that. You could write, online shopping has become increasingly popular. You've changed the noun popularity to the adjective popular.
It's simple, but it's really effective. You've basically just rearranged the furniture in the sentence.
That's a great way to put it. Strategy 3 is changing the sentence structure, and this usually involves playing with the grammar. The classic move here is switching between the active and the passive voice.
The dreaded passive voice. My high school English teacher always told me to avoid it at all costs, but you're saying here it can actually be useful.
In narrative storytelling, yes, we often avoid it, but in academic writing, we love it. It sounds more objective and formal.
Okay.
So if the prompt says, technology has changed communication, you can flip that into the passive and say, communication methods have been transformed by technological advancement.
Transformed by, that sounds very sophisticated. And it puts the focus on the communication methods rather than on the technology.
It does. It shows the examiner you can manipulate the grammatical structures of the language. Now, strategy 4 is what I call the combo. This is for the test takers who are hunting for those Band 8 and Band 9 scores.
The combo. This sounds like a move from a video game.
It is the ultimate move. This is where you use multiple strategies all at once. Let's look at a case study. Imagine a prompt about prison versus rehabilitation.
Okay.
The original sentence might say something simple like, longer prison sentences are the best way to reduce crime.
Okay, a very common IELTS topic. Longer prison sentences. How do we combo that?
We might paraphrase that as, the effectiveness of extended incarceration versus alternative rehabilitation approaches has long been a contentious issue in criminology.
Whoa. Okay, let's break that down. Longer prison sentences became extended incarceration.
That's synonym replacement.
And best way became the effectiveness of.
Right. Changing the word form and the focus of the sentence. We're not just swapping individual words. We're capturing the deeper nuance of the debate. That is a Band 9 paraphrase right there.
It sounds so professional. It sounds like something you'd read in The Economist or a university textbook, not a student essay.
And that is the goal. You want the examiner to forget for a moment that they're grading a student's essay and feel like they're reading a piece written by an educated peer.
So we have the anatomy, we have the art of paraphrasing, but I know, and I'm sure our listeners know, that not all IELTS questions are created equal. A problem-solution essay is not the same as an agree-disagree essay. Does the introduction need to change?
The core principles, the funnel, the clarity, they all remain. But the structure of your thesis statement has to shift. You need to tailor your handshake to the person you're meeting.
Right.
You wouldn't shake hands with your new boss the same way you shake hands with your best friend, right?
Right. Fair point.
Yeah.
So let's run through the strategies by question type. Let's start with the most common one, the opinion or the agree-disagree question.
The requirement here is crystal clear. You must state your position immediately. Don't be shy about it.
So what's the structure for that?
It's simple. Paraphrase the topic, then state your position, whether you agree, disagree, or partially agree, and then, ideally, hint at your main reasons.
Can we have an example?
Let's say the topic is government funding. The introduction could be, the allocation of public funds is a persistent subject of debate. While transport infrastructure is undeniably important, I firmly believe that investment in healthcare and education should take precedence.
Should take precedence. Very strong. Very clear. Okay, what about the discussion question? The one that says, discuss both views and give your opinion.
This is the true one. The nuance here is that you absolutely must acknowledge both sides in your introduction before you give your own opinion.
Okay.
If you just jump straight in with, I think X, you haven't fulfilled the task requirement of discussing the other view. You fail the task.
So you need to be a bit more of a diplomat in this one.
Exactly. Think of yourself as a diplomat. The structure is, paraphrase the debate, then acknowledge there's merit in both sides, and then gently hint at your own personal stance.
So something like, While both approaches offer distinct advantages in the field of education, the final choice ultimately hinges on a student's specific field of interest.
That's perfect. You're saying, I see you point A, I see you point B, but here's where I stand.
Got it. Next up, problem solution questions.
Here, the requirement is to identify that a problem exists and to mention that solutions are needed. You don't need to list every single solution in the intro, but you do need to signal that you're going to discuss them.
So maybe something like, the rise of urban anonymity increasingly generates social disconnection, a problem which, though serious, can be mitigated through targeted community initiatives.
Can be mitigated through targeted community initiatives. That is your thesis. It tells me you're going to discuss the problem, which is the anonymity, and then you're going to discuss the solution, which is the initiatives.
Simple enough. What about the two-part questions? These are the ones that ask, for example, why is this happening, and is this a positive or negative development?
You must answer both parts in the introduction. If you only answer the why part, you're going to lose points on task response. You've only done half the job.
So the intro really needs to be a doubleheader.
It does. For example, the recent surge in childhood obesity stems primarily from shifts in lifestyle and diet. That covers the why, a worrying trend that requires coordinated intervention from both families and schools. That covers the is it positive or negative part.
You're really just answering the questions in miniature form in the intro.
That's a fantastic way to think about it. The introduction is the miniature version of your entire essay.
And finally, the advantages-disadvantages question.
This one is very similar to the discussion essay. You paraphrase the topic, you acknowledge that both pros and cons exist, and then you state if one outweighs the other, but only if the question asks you to.
Right, because sometimes it just says, what are the advantages and disadvantages? And other times it will explicitly ask, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages?
Correct. You have to read the prompt very, very carefully. That is always step one.
Okay, we're really cruising now. But even with all these templates and structures, I know things can go wrong. I want to talk about the danger zones. Let's get into the common pitfalls and mistakes.
Oh, there are so many traps a student can fall into. We've already mentioned what I think is mistake number one, the copy-paste error.
And we really can't say it enough. Do not copy the prompt. It absolutely destroys your vocabulary score. Just don't do it.
Amen. Mistake number two is what I call the too vague trap. This is when a student writes an introduction that is so broad, so generic, it could apply to almost any essay topic.
You mean something like, education's a very important topic, and people have many opinions about it.
Yes. Or my personal favorite disaster. Since the dawn of time, humans have communicated with each other.
Oh, no. Since the dawn of time. Sound like the voiceover for a bad history documentary.
It's pure filler. It means nothing. It's a complete waste of words and time.
It's like filling the space with air instead of substance.
Exactly. Your intro needs to be specific.
Yeah.
If the prompt is about mandatory volunteering, don't just talk about education.
Yeah.
Talk about student autonomy or civic responsibility. You have to drill down.
Okay, what's mistake number 3?
The bloated intro.
This is writing way too much.
Way too much. Anything over, say, 80 words is getting into the danger zone.
But why? I mean, wouldn't writing more show off more of your English skills?
It's a bad trade-off. It eats up your time and your space. Remember, you have a word count to hit, but the points are scored in the body paragraphs. That's where you develop your arguments with examples and evidence.
Right.
If you spend 15 minutes writing a beautiful 100-word introduction, you have stolen that time from the main event. You're setting yourself up to rush your body paragraphs and your conclusion.
So cut the philosophical musings. Keep it tight.
Mistake number 4 is what I call the robot voice.
Beep boop. I am writing an essay.
That's basically it. It's using memorized templates and phrases that don't quite fit. Things like, in this modern era, or the classic, it is often said that.
Oh, I bet examiners must see in this modern era 1,000 times a day.
They do. And they are trained to spot these cliches. They sound unnatural and they lower your score because it shows you're relying on a memorized script, not your own flexible language skills. It feels fake.
And what's mistake number 5?
The mystery position.
We touched on this one earlier. This is writing something like, I will discuss both sides, but then refusing to hint at what you actually think until the very last sentence of the conclusion.
Yes. Don't save the surprise for the end. This is not a murder mystery novel where you have a big reveal.
Right.
Clarity beats suspense every single time in academic writing. Tell me where we're going before we start the car.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit. We've covered the fundamentals and the common mistakes. Now I want to talk to the people listening who are really aiming high. They don't want a band 6. They want a band 8 or even a band 9. What are the advanced techniques they need to be using?
This is where we get into the really beautiful nuances of the English language. The first technique is using complex sentence structures.
Moving beyond the cat sat on the mat.
Precisely. You have to move beyond simple subject-verb-object sentences. You want to be using things like relative clauses, sentences that use words like which, who, or where. You want to use concession words like despite or although.
Can you give us a before and after comparison?
Sure. A basic sentence might be, climate change is bad. It affects many countries. 2 simple sentences.
Very simple. Band 5 or 6, maybe.
Maybe. An advanced version would combine those ideas. Climate change, which poses existential threats to many coastal communities, demands coordinated international action despite the significant economic costs involved.
Wow. That which and that despite adds so much texture and flavor. It connects the ideas together rather than just listing them. It feels like a web of thought.
It creates logical flow and it increases the density of your information. The next advanced technique is showing critical thinking and analysis.
How do you show critical thinking in just a 2-sentence introduction?
By shifting your language from being purely descriptive to being analytical. Descriptive language just says X happened. Analytical language says X happened, and this implies Y.
Okay, give me an example of that.
A descriptive sentence would be, social media changed communication. It's true, but it's simple.
Right.
An analytical sentence would be, the rise of social media didn't just change communication, it fundamentally altered the nature of human connection.
Ooh, fundamentally alter the nature of human connection. That sounds so much deeper.
It shows you aren't just looking at the surface of the topic, you're thinking about the deeper implications. You're thinking like a university student, not just a high school student.
I love that. Okay, what's next on the advanced list?
Hedging.
Hedging,
Yeah.
like in gardening, or maybe in investment banking.
More like an academic rigor. You see, good academic writing is rarely absolute. It avoids strong, absolute words like always, everyone, or never.
Because almost nothing is always true.
Exactly. There are always exceptions. So instead of making a blanket statement like, technology improves educational outcomes, which can be easily disproven.
Right.
You would say, technology can significantly enhance educational outcomes, or technology tends to improve outcomes. See the difference? It's harder to argue with the second one. It's more precise, and it protects your argument.
It actually makes you sound smarter because you're acknowledging the nuance of the world.
Indeed. Next up is a big word, nominalization.
That sounds like a complicated medical procedure. I'm sorry, sir. You need an emergency nominalization.
It's a linguistic procedure. It just means turning verbs or adjectives into nouns. It's a key feature that makes writing sound more formal and academic.
How does that work in practice?
Okay, take a simple phrase like, companies are becoming more global. Global, there's an adjective. If we nominalize it, we can create a phrase like, the globalization of corporate operations.
The globalization of corporate operations. Yeah, that sounds much heavier. In a good academic way.
It allows you to pack more information into the subject of your sentence. It is a true hallmark of high-level academic writing.
And the final advanced technique.
Using impersonal constructions. This means reducing your use of I think in favor of more objective-sounding phrases like it could be argued that, or the prevailing view holds that.
So it shifts the focus from me, the writer, to the argument itself.
Yes. This makes your argument feel more objective and less like just your personal subjective opinion.
These are fantastic tips, but I can hear our listeners thinking, this is all great, but I have to do all of this in a 40-minute essay, and I still have to write the body and the conclusion. So let's talk about practical application and time management.
The time crunch is absolutely real. In our breakdown, we recommend a very strictly limited timeline for writing the introduction. 7 minutes, max.
7 minutes, that is it.
If you spend more than 7 minutes on your introduction, you are stealing valuable time from the rest of your essay.
So walk us through those 7 minutes. How do we spend them effectively?
Okay, minute 1. Analyze the question. Read it 3 times. Underline the keywords.
Yes.
Identify the question type.
Decide your position. Do not overthink it. Just pick a side that you can defend with 2 or 3 ideas.
Don't have an existential crisis in minute 2. Just pick one and go.
Correct. The examiner does not care what your opinion is, only that you can support it well. Minute 3. Plan your paraphrase. Quickly make mental notes or jot down a few synonyms for the keywords.
Okay.
Minutes 4 and 5. Write the opening and the thesis statement. Just get the words down on the paper.
Add your outline statement, if you're using one.
Yeah.
And the most crucial minute, minute 7. Review. quickly check for any obvious grammar or clarity mistakes.
That is an incredibly tight schedule. You have to be so disciplined.
You do, but with practice, this 7-minute routine becomes second nature. It becomes automatic.
And we should probably mention the reality of handwriting.
Oh, yes. That's a huge point.
Yeah.
If you are taking the paper-based test, you have to remember that handwriting is much slower than typing for most of us today. We are so used to keyboards.
Right.
Your practice needs to be analog if your test is going to be analog.
Don't practice on a laptop if you're going to be using a pen on test day. That muscle memory really matters.
And what happens if you just get stuck? You're sitting there, the clock is ticking, and you have writer's block on a synonym.
Oh, that's the worst. You're trying to think of a better word for important, and your brain just goes completely blank.
My advice is, do not panic. If you can't find that one perfect word, just describe the concept instead. Or use a simpler, correct word and move on. Significant, vital, key. Getting stuck on one word for 3 minutes is a complete disaster for your time management.
Yeah.
Flow is much more important than finding one perfect synonym.
And what about tone? We've talked about being academic, but what does that mean in practical terms?
In practical terms, it means maintaining what we call cultural neutrality. You have to avoid idioms or slang like kids or stuff. You wouldn't want to write "it costs an arm and a leg."
Right, because the examiner might be from a different culture and not know that specific idiom. And you should also avoid region-specific assumptions, like saying, like we do here in my country.
Keep it global. Aim for a semi-formal tone. You're not writing like Shakespeare, but you're also not writing a text message to your best friend.
So how do we get good at this? We can't just listen to this deep dive once and then magically become Band 9 writers. We need a practice plan.
You absolutely do. We recommend a simple 8-week roadmap.
8 weeks. Give us the highlights of that.
It starts with an analysis phase. For the first couple of weeks, just read Band 8 and Band 9 model essays. Dissect them. Look at how those writers built their introductions.
Okay.
Then you move to the imitation phase. Try to rewrite those good introductions, but in your own words. Then comes production. Start writing your own introductions under timed conditions. Aim for that 5 to 7 minute window. And finally, the refinement phase. This is where you connect your introductions to full-body paragraphs to make sure the whole essay flows together logically.
I really like that the plan starts with analysis and imitation first. It takes the pressure off having to create something from scratch and focuses you on understanding the mechanics first.
Exactly. You have to learn the rhythm of the music before you can try to write your own song.
So what's the single most important key takeaway here?
The introduction acts as a promise to the reader. The body paragraphs must deliver on that promise. Consistency is absolutely key.
Right.
If your introduction is written with Band 9 vocabulary and complex sentences, but your body paragraphs drop down to Band 5 simple sentences, the examiner will notice that gap immediately.
It's like you're wearing a very fancy tuxedo jacket, but with old pajama pants. It just doesn't work.
That is a perfect analogy.
So to wrap all this up, we have the 2-sentence solution, a sentence for context, and a sentence for your thesis.
Yes. Keep it simple and clear.
You have to paraphrase, don't just copy.
Never, ever copy.
You have to be clear, not vague. You have to be concise, not bloated.
And remember, mastering this skill isn't just for the test.
Right. Here is where it gets really interesting for life beyond the exam. Why else does this matter so much?
Well, think about the professional world or university life. The ability to organize your thoughts under pressure, to summarize a complex situation and state your position clearly within the first 30 seconds of a meeting. That is a superpower.
That is the handshake again, isn't it?
It is. It's the exact same skill. If you can do this effectively in an IELTS essay, you can do it in an executive summary for your boss or in a pitch deck for a client. It is a fundamental communication skill that will serve you far, far beyond the exam room.
That's a fantastic perspective. It's not just about getting a score. It's about training yourself to become a clearer, more effective thinker.
That is the ultimate goal, yes.
Well, I feel ready to go write an introduction right now. Maybe not for a full essay, but at least for a strongly worded email.
That counts. It's all practice.
Thank you so much for breaking this all down for us. It feels so much less daunting now.
My pleasure. Just remember the key principles. Funnel, thesis, map. You can do this.
And to our listeners, if you found this deep dive helpful, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It really helps us keep bringing you these insights.
Yes, please do. And good luck with your writing.
Bye for now.